Hey Miguel, good morning from me. How are you doing today?
I'm really good. Thanks, Red, for having me today. I s-
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you coming on. It's been a lot of fun to have been participating in and working with you the last 3, 4 months on some of the visual design. So I'm happy to get you to come on and kind of talk about some of these um, very large movements forward when it comes to uh,
did
assisting a lot of the pitfalls that we've had in the report experience in Power BI. I know, like you were on two 2 years ago, I think originally when you were talking about just design in general.
yeah,
You were initially involved with the cat team, kind of as the uh, and even before that, other roles in Microsoft. But when I met you, you were with working with the cat team as kind of the go-to when any of those large clients for Microsoft really were stuck on design. Like you were that point person. And I think you have a master's in graphic design or something adjacent to that, if I recall correct.
yeah. I study graphic design, international marketing, and those two helped me to understand a little bit more the artistic side and the psychology behind UI, UX, and data visualizations.
Hmm.
And you're right. I started in for like working for the CAD team as a data visualization specialist and Power BI report expert, and helping partners, the public in general, and customers to improve their reports. And you're right. The last time we had a webinar, it was all about good practices designing reports.
Yep,
However, I
exactly.
now jump into this new role that I was offered like last year, and I started being the product manager for data visualizations in Power BI starting in January of this year, and it has been really exciting.
And I'm like, I think a lot of people are also just, as I'm just kind of looking at the chat, I'm coming up with some very fun questions for this. But I do think that this is great to see you get to flex a lot of your expertise when it comes to this. And I mean, just based off of the the Figma docs and everything that you come up with this, you have a lot of very grand visions for some of the design for this. But I do think to finish up kind of the intro on that, your current role is essentially the PM for the a lot of the redesigns that can come through from the reporting and everything kind of on that report layer and working with the teams to see what can be done reasonably, what can be done fast versus is more of a long term nice to have goal. But is there anything that you'd like to finish up kind of as an introduction for yourself, maybe before we switch into kind of the allowing for some Q&A and discussions around just what could be coming for Power BI?
Oh no, no, I think that's straightforward. Like I started as a
Sure.
report designer. Now I am a PM. Many people are reaching out to me saying that they want to talk with somebody that understands them. I am that person. I am as you. I
Yep.
know how to use Power BI. I was a report designer. I still using it, not as much as I would like to, because now I am in this PM role, but I'm still practicing and do not put my guard down on this field. So I do know your pain, and I exactly know the challenges that you are facing, because that was the challenge I was facing every single day doing my job. So we are among friends, basically.
Perfect. Glad to hear that. Yeah, and I think the goal is you've kind of described on some of the LinkedIn posts and everything else is this is going to kind of be a discussion of both what is on the roadmap, what's coming as far as the things that are being worked on that can be publicly discussed, and also just allowing people to ask some questions. I know there will be quite a few onto the channel today. I do want to target the questions in. I have queued up some from people already dropping into the channel, but we want to keep these focused on things related to reporting. So visualizations, slicers, tables, report features, stuff like that, filters, pane kind of stuff. But the tabular editor, DAX questions, all that kind of stuff. That's kind of off topic, so we won't go into any of that stuff. This is really a report and design focused feature on how users can interact with the reports, those kind of features, but also the types of visuals and features available for them. So we'll focus on those questions specifically today with Miguel.
Yeah, just to clarify, we this is the core visuals team. So we
Yep.
manage everything that is visualization, not just
Mhm.
data visualization. In other words, when we use buttons, that's a visual. So you use it to trigger certain actions in the data visualization. So that belongs to me. If you want to ask questions regarding the on-object experience or the banners or some kind of connections, or that's not my field. That's the Canvas team or the report creation team. Like there are other teams, but this for me, if you want to be focusing on asking questions, just focus on the core visuals and the functionality that they give you.
Mhm.
They give you like drill mode, filters, cross highlighting, interactions, tooltips, all those things are natively living in these visuals. That's in my bucket.
Exactly. And as you were mentioning that, I've queued up the ones that will be related, so we can get into some of those later. But I think just as a starting conversation, would you like to kind of talk about what
Yep.
actually has come out recently that's been part of this program? I think just because we've had a couple of releases that have already started to trickle out,
Yeah.
subtitles as an example. That was a big one. You know, I'm glad that dashboards had them from day one. We finally got them in reporting, so I'm very happy about that. It's a small win. But yeah, if you're ready, I can uh, flip over and we can maybe do a if you want to, if you have anything to share on your screen, we can flip over
Yeah,
and
of
start the
course.
conversations from there.
Yeah, I'll share my screen. I think I'm sharing it already.
You are, yes. We don't want the recursion, so just have the video go away. There you go.
All right.
Excellent.
So this
Perfect.
is information I have shared in multiple webinars, but just for everybody that hasn't seen it and just for us to have good Q&A session, I just want to let you know the things that are coming this semester, or the things that we are working at this moment for the semester starting from April and ending in September. What we are doing is we're going to improve the car visual. The car visual is, well, we call them call-out visuals, which is the car, multi-rocker, and KPI as part of the call-out group of visuals. And we're going to develop a new card that is going to replace the current card, the multi-row card, and the KPI card, and even later on, part of what the gauge offers. And we're going to start just allowing you to use something so similar to what we do with the navigation buttons. When you have multiple pages and automatically in one single container, you can see multiple buttons. You add a new page and then in that container adds a new button. You remove a page and then it automatically gets removed. Something similar is going to happen with the new car visual. The new car visual, you can just drag and drop multiple values in that container will display them with equal space, with equal alignment, and you can choose between multiple layouts. There are many things that you're going to do here that I showcase in other webinars. Feel free to reach out to them because I went through much detail. But basically, you're going to be able to align the text to the left, center, right, to the top, center, and bottom. You can add images beside it or on top of it, like use SVG images as well, and many more stuff, like a lot more than what you believe we were capable of. Then we're gonna go and add indicator labels. So now you can add more information below, and each individual card will have its own labels. You're not restricted that the label that you use for one will apply for all of them at the same time. You could, but you have as well the freedom of choosing exactly what you want. And this section is going to have multiple options here to make your report even more appealing and have more control over the information you want to share. So that's going to be superior of what we offer for the KPI card, where you have a label container too. And then at the end of this semester, you might not be able to see this one in this semester live, but you will be able to see it at the end of this year or at the beginning of the following semester. The following semester will be October 2023 and March 2024. So you might see it at the beginning of that semester. There's more multiple support. So with that one, you're going to be able to split multiple cars into multiple dimensions. Imagine using field parameters to switch entirely rows of cards, and like there is a lot of magic happening here. It seems like it just is a few improvements, but in reality, with people that are really creative in Power BI and want to take things to the extreme, this is going to open a lot of work, like a lot of amazing stuff.
Well,
Another,
and it reduces the number of unique objects, you know?
oh yeah,
Like something down there could have been, you had 4 cards, a background, and 2 bars for labels. So that could have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That could have been 6 or 7 different containers on the page to create that effect that you now
uh,
have for one.
let me show to our audience what we meant. So this is what Red is talking about.
Yes.
At this moment, this is our reality. If we want to create a beautiful card that it's quite appealing, and as well people like to see and understand what's going on in there, what happens at this moment for those that maybe don't want to take things to the extreme is we need to create a lot of components. Like if I want to create this banner in the left side of my card, I need to use a shape, and then another shape in the background, and then my card visual, and then maybe some kind of other card or multi-row card, and then an image that can switch between multiple stages, etc. So you end up for these 2 cards with so many components. This is going to drag your performance badly. And if you want to create a responsive and accessible design, so people that are blind or people with motor disabilities that they cannot use the mouse and they can navigate only through the keyboard, it will be a nightmare to go through each individual item to understand what's going on in there. So that's going to be a thing of the past. And now one single card, as you can see here, will carry all those beautiful stuff and controls that you need to really take those cards to the next level. Another great example that I always show is if we want to create an executive page with like a scorecard page, we need to come up with bring so many cards and then align them one by one. And if the data continues increasing, we need to even add some kind of or increase the size of the page, ending up with this kind of scroll bar and continue. Like there is a lot of manual work, including a lot of performance being decreasing. With a new card, you can do all that with one single card, as you can see up here, and the card can look really light, nice, everything easy to control. And all you need, as I said, is just drag all those fields, and they're going to be sorted in one single container. So there is a lot of potential here. I am not going to go into so much detail, but there is
two call outs on this is one person did actually have a question related to this because the other general comments I'll queue up for the Q&A at the end, as I mentioned in the chat. But tool tips for cards. Is there any thoughts on that? Like, because we have a universal tool tip, but like if we're going to do trellising and all this other stuff, would there be able to have any kind of unique tool tips per category that you're hovering over, separate tooltip pages or designs for those?
Yeah. That's part of the work that I did with engineers and community representatives. It was something that at some point the engineering team told me that maybe we could do that later, but I said no way. Like that's an experience that comes with the card. If we are not capable to have control over what tooltip is displayed in each card, then we should just wait until that's done. So I was finally able to convince the engineer team to really take that path, and they were supporting that idea later on. And yeah, you're gonna be able. I'm trying to show you that part to really specify what type of. I think you're gonna be able to say, all right, for that particular card, I want to use maybe a default tooltip. So cost per hire, you can see the tooltip here. But for the turnover rate, maybe you just want to show some kind of text to explain what is this metric all about. And for the headcount, maybe you want to see a tooltip page. And as you can see here in this example, you're going to have that type of control. Each card will have its own tooltip.
No, I love that. And I think that's going to be, especially when you can assign different tooltip pages to each one of them, I think that will be huge to not only get the card, but the additional context. And again, all of this is in one container. So of all of the, I mean, as you know, the number one perpetrator of having to layer objects is when you're like, it's text, but alignment and then a symbol and an icon, like, and you end up with like one card can be five, and then you need five of those, and like you have 30 or 40 objects on the page. So like just for speed and rendering, and not having people need to Frankenstein together their own things, I think that will be really really big on one click, whatever 30 seconds to wow type stuff to be able to deliver those.
That's correct. Now, in the label side, labels is something that we are starting because it's a strategic piece of the data visualizations components that basically everywhere can be found. Sometimes we call them labels, sometimes we call them values, but they are everywhere. And if we increase the functionality and the properties that labels carry, later on we will apply them everywhere else, and you're going to see much more control. One of the things that we want to do first is to give you a teaser of label improvements, and that is what we call measure-driven data labels. That was one of the requests that we had for the longest time. And for those ones that they don't understand the concept, is basically if you create this column, headcount by month, automatically, if you turn on the labels, you're going to see the headcount value. But with this new enhancement, you can say that you want to customize that label and you want to use another measure or field instead what we give you by default. So in this case, you can see that now, even though that I have headcount, which is values, I can see percentages as labels. You're going to experience some limitations, some quite strange behaviors with this feature once it's launched publicly. But the reason of that is because we want to know your feedback. We want to know the things that you do with it, because the next milestone that we are working at this moment is going to take it to the next level, and it's going to improve so many things that these measure-driven data labels is doing.
Well, and right now it's very much a, I mean, it's something you can technically do today with calculation groups, but it's an expert feature. Most people do not have Tabular Editor installed. It's a very small percentage of even people who are expert developers. A lot of them don't know what Tabular Editor is, or let alone know how to write measure string formatting and all these other fancy stuff. But then it also can screw up the axis labels, and there's a bunch of weird stuff that can happen. So this, I think, is a great improvement that will make it much easier to basically show value A for the column, or use that for the height of the column, and then have the label just be whatever you want it to be. A number, a concatenated percentage and value, icon, whatever you want to include into that. But I think this will drastically reduce the complexity of implementing something like this.
Yeah, however, like I said, you're going to see some limitations. If you want to add a long text in here, I believe one of the things that we are seeing that is happening is it won't be shown because it's too much text, and automatically will be removed. So you won't see any labels unless you expanded the visual in a really big size. Like things like that, you're going to see that maybe it's going to be inconvenient in certain ways if you take to the extreme. But for the next improvement, that is basically the real improvement for labels, you won't have that issue. We will solve all of those ones that you might experience in measure-driven data labels, and here it will be completely refined. So what we want to do here is give you the possibility to not only adding another label, but keeping the one that you had by default. So if you want to keep that default and add text or add percentage or add icons or whatever you want, you are going to be able to do that. Later on, we will allow you to even format those options to the extreme. So you're going to be able to separate these like styles. You can make the default label bigger, black, and then for the other ones, you can apply conditional formatting and make it smaller, make it right aligned based on the major or the biggest value, and the other one will align to the right, to the center, or to the left. And the location based on the data point. All of those options are going to be now controllable. And there are other like hidden gems or treasures, hidden treasures that we are adding into the format pane that is going to change forever how we manage individual items or formatting in values, dates, and text in general. And that,
well, a big one in this is the fact that you've carriage returned a separate value, and you've actually colored it separately, which is really nice. Because I mean, like you can you can hack together a formatted string with a calc group where it's, a number forward slash something else, but it has to be on one line. It has to be one color. You can't change the font or the size. So this is much more cleanly formatted and designed as a kind of a polished look of her values on a line versus what you can do currently.
Yes, one thing that maybe can give as well a idea of those improvements is what I have here, which example that it was already confirmed by the engineering team is this. So
Mm-hmm.
you can change the color, but as well you can change the background for each individual,
Oh,
or
that'd
you
be nice.
have
Yeah.
one background that holds them both. Um, I mean, labels are now going to be really interesting to use. And as like more and more we improve, this is just the milestone 0, imagine. And ideally for this transformation, for all data visualizations, we have maximum 4 milestones per feature. And this is, if this is the milestone 0, imagine what's coming next. Like there is way more enhancements. One thing else that we're going to start doing this semester is improving the label, the serial labels. Serial labels right now, if you have multiple lines like this one and they are so close with each other, we will sacrifice some labels and you'll see only ones that we will define by ourselves. It's in the system, it's hardcore coded, and you won't be able to change a thing there. But we're going to give you now the control over what do you want to be displayed, and even add guidelines to follow good practices in data visualizations and human cognition for people to correlate your plot and your label. So in this case, if we have these two so close, then you'll see which one is Chris and which one is Nico.
So can you force all of them on even if they're that close, or are you basically ranking a priority? Like if you can only
Right
show
priority.
8,
No,
okay,
you
so if you have a total of 10 categories, only 8 can show, you can order them basically like this is top priority, this is second, third, and fourth. So what the bottom of the list would get hidden first, basically.
yes, that's correct. And you're going to be able
Okay.
to do that as well when you use the slider in the axis and you want to just zoom in, then you're going to start seeing then all the other ones that were removed by that priority given. The other one is this one. When it was COVID-19, I designed some reports for Microsoft just related to
Mm-hmm.
the scenes and all the stuff, all those crazy metrics that we had to do back then. And I had to basically put 3 visualizations on top of each other to really create this effect, to show the label exactly where the data point is. If you turn on serial labels, you won't see USA or Canada because they didn't go to the last data point as Mexico did, and you will only see this.
Oh,
But with
okay.
this improvement, the serial labels will follow the last data point. And remember, in the previous report, in the previous feature for labels, we added the capability for you to add percentage or any other icons. So you're going to be now, in this case, you can even add the value in CUSA amount of like end amount of sales or whatever. So you can even enhance these labels. Just give me a second. I'm going to connect
Yeah.
laptops.
I realize I maybe plug in the laptop, so no
Yeah.
problem. No, I'm for people watching, and yeah, very much excited for a lot of this stuff. And there will be some things coming in the near future for these things. Some things that will be coming more of like Microsoft loves the quote like, when is it coming? It's coming soon. So there's a mixture of things in the near future and a mixture of things that are coming sometime down the pipeline, but not officially on the roadmap yet.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I think we all know that, just as a wrap up of that, the situation with like a manager asks for 2 rocks. One rock takes 5 minutes, the other rock takes 6 months. It's some of these things are going to be easy wins, but there are certain things in here that requires more of a re-engineering of how the visuals work as well. As you mentioned to myself and the other people helping you out.
Yeah. And the other one is supporting zero levels for other visualizations that we do not support at this moment. In this case, line charts are the only ones that have the benefit of having the zero labels. I don't know why was the decision made, but I'm gonna open up that to other visualizations. Here you can see an example of the ribbon chart and how beautiful it looks when it uses zero labels too. And finally, other things that I think that's how we end this semester.
Mm-hmm.
roadmap for this year, and then you're gonna see other improvements. This one is already there. You know that the tooltips forever has been fixed. That the size of the information displayed in tooltips is fixed. So if you have a high resolution screen and your report is huge, then the tooltip will showcase really small, even really hard to see to read. Or the other way around, if you're zooming in or you are using a really low resolution screen, the tooltip will look huge compared to the page. And now with this new
Yep.
feature, you can turn on in the options in Power BI's desktop or in Service View, you can go into settings and you can turn tooltip size is affected by the canvas size. Both the tooltip and the page content will be always the same size.
Well, and I think translated the visual header icons, all of the things that are essentially set by your Windows scale resolution would auto adjust with how big it is as a resolution on your screen, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
And
Somebody just had a quick clarification. You did say semester. Can you mention when you say like by end of semester, what's the date range for that?
yeah, the semester number one is starting in April and ending in September.
Gotcha.
Semester number two or following semester is October of this year and ends in March of next year. That's every semester when we discuss semesters in the development cycle.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we talk about it.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and then the one that is coming after the milestone zero is the possibility to finally, God help us here, and this is like I was waiting for this one forever, but it's gonna happen soon, and that is removing the default tooltip options, and you can use only information that is relevant for you at this moment. When you create this headcount by month, automatically the tooltip will give you headcount and month by default, and you can add more tooltips if that's what you want, but there is no way for you to remove some of these ones or both. It's always given by the system. Now you're
Mm-hmm.
going to be able to remove them and add whatever you want.
Oh, that's fantastic.
uh,
I did have some a couple people asking actually about the besides what we have available today, drill down or drill through that's available either in tooltips or we have the buttons. Are there any other ideas on uh, discoverability for that or locations to put that in? Because it's even today, it's still kind of a bit of a buried feature just because it's, we do have the modern tooltip where if you hover and hold, you get it showing up in the tooltip and all that. But besides what we've discussed, any other thoughts on just drill through accessibility?
Yeah, there is a lot of into the tooltip. There is a lot of talkings about how we're gonna make it more discoverable, but we still need to think another ways to even enhance that. There is a work that I put into the scope that, by the way, the community representative said that it was not the idea to do it really quickly. But that one is going to help us with the slicer. It's going to help us with that issue that you were asking, and that is exposing certain action buttons in the header in every container. So that will allow you to showcase here an icon for drill through, so users can see that drill through is a capability that it's already supported for that visualization in specifically. And you can even change the icon for something other icon that you want. Maybe you already have icons in some kind of gallery or SVG icon themes, and you want to replace the one that we are giving you and change them. And maybe you want to change the size, the color, like have full control over the items that are displayed here. And you can even decide if you want the icon to be fully exposed all the time or only when somebody hovers, like what happens right now.
That's going to be big. I get a lot of clients asking, like, can we please just have these on so they know that they exist? And
Yeah,
it's
yeah. So it's important. It was important for me because there are so many improvements for slicers where I want to remove the header for slicers and use the title and subtitle, and then expose the erase button or maybe
mm-hmm.
the search button where somebody clicks search and then automatically shows the search stuff. And like
Agreed.
to me, it was a critical item. However, committee representatives believe that it's better to start adding more enhancements to the container before even adding icons. This might change next semester because they have to go through a lot of items that they need to vote again. and maybe they might change their mind. Who knows? That's why they have the power of representing you all. Um,
Loving the changes and improvements to some of that. Like, I mean, it's just so many client problems and
yeah,
complaints. It's like, yep, like I've had 20 clients ask about that, 20 clients ask about that.
that's great. Well, this one is the other one that we're gonna do now is improving slicers in general, but we want to start with the button slicer. The button slicer is one of the slicers that haven't been touched almost entirely since their creation. And now we're going to redesign a new, like this is, we are not going to use the current button or tile slicer. We're going to design a brand new slicer that is going to be called button slicer that will replace entirely what you get from the tile slicer or from the chiclet slicer. So the chiclet slicer, if you're a big fan of it, you're not going to be fan anymore because this one is going to be way more powerful.
Well, and the fact, like, just can I mention the the rounded corners, which are finally coming, which everything else can be rounded except for the buttons, and it definitely breaks the design, which is why people use the chiclet slicer. Why? Because you can round the corners.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything is going for rounded edges. Like that's just the current trend right now with UI, and there shouldn't be anything left with a pointed edge if it doesn't have to be.
Yes.
And yeah, I know a lot of again customer complaint about that, so that's a nice minor improvement.
Yeah, that and much more. Imagine that you can add some kind of icons or subtitles below it. There's gonna be much more that you can see in the buttons. Some ideas that I'm being inspired by, and I want to make sure that we can implement. Let me see if it's. But this is just like a for you to know how I get inspired and the things I see. Imagine that in your buttons you can even add an icon, and you can when something is selected, it will show this type of icon.
Okay, so essentially, like similar to buttons, you can, I'm guessing, incorporate. It's almost like a table where you can incorporate an icon into whatever the label is that's just coming from the column, and then you could say left or right, and then you could probably choose
Yes.
selected, not selected, and what icon represents either one.
Yeah, that's correct. And
Okay.
then imagine in the future where you can even use buttons to do things like this, to create some kind of the value, then some kind of sub value below, and then icons as well that can switch depending your selection, and they can be like later on we can even support small multiples to create like a bucket of multiple selections. But there is a lot of possibilities, and we already have the technology using the button technology and make these buttons more powerful. Now, something else that we want to do in these new improvements is to create a visual separation between what is single select and what is multiple selection. Uh, just for you to understand what I'm talking about, maybe you're like, what is Miguel talking about? I have no idea. So here is visually, when this is a multiple selection in the list, you're gonna see this type of square selector with this like check mark icon. But when you have a single selection, that doesn't look like that. It looks like this.
Yeah, it changes them to the radio buttons,
The radio
which is
button,
interesting. I think I'm assuming visually it's supposed to represent just the fact that you can't unselect it.
yep. So the radio button is a universal UI component that tells you that it is a single selection. We don't have that for the button. So one way that we can do just to create a separation, honestly, if you don't like this approach that we'll give you by default, you can change everything because we'll give you control over separation, borders, colors.
Mm-hmm.
But when you select the button to be single selection, it's going to look like this. And if you want to be multiple selection, the button will automatically switch their style and it will look like this. That's going to be the first hint for you to see a separation.
Okay. But as you mentioned, default, but you can make it look like the regular selection again if you want it.
Oh yeah, totally. If you think that this is the best way to go for a single selection, you're gonna be able to do that easily.
I
Just
and I actually, from my own perspective, I have one request on this. Is again a constant customer's request is they want single select, meaning they can never control select, they can never multi select, but they also still want to have a clear button. They want to have nothing selected, but when they make a selection, only one is enforced at a time. So that's always been a limitation. Is you have to have a default selection, and like, well, we don't really want one to when somebody opens the have one of these selected already. But if they select one, it's impossible to make more than one selection. They have to just
yeah.
select one at a time.
Yes, that's as well part of the new improvements for the button slicer. Then later on, we'll catch up to the other
Excellent.
slicers. So, and that's what I'm saying. Maybe here you can see only the aesthetics and some of the beautiful stuff, but there are many hidden treasures in the formatting pane that you're gonna say, finally, this is now in the product, because later on we'll apply to other features. These small improvements is basically a holistic way to improve everything else, but we need to do it progressively. Otherwise, you will never see changes in the product.
It's a great question. Actually, I'm just going to pop this up on the screen for a second. But they just wanted to know: is there any place where some of these features or roadmaps are documented outside of like the global Power BI roadmap? Is there kind of a visuals roadmap at all, or a blog people can go look at, or a website to kind of track some of these stuff?
We're working at this moment on that. We are putting some
perfect
images. We're designing images and text just to put it in the community website. I'm going to work with the community leaders. They can give me a site in the Power BI community website. And we want to use the new LinkedIn account that we have for PBI Core Visuals. So then you can go there and in the product section, we want to put all the features that we want to show you, or that we are developing this semester. So there are going to be the two places where you can see exactly what we are doing. And it will be amazing because you can even give feedback at the moment where we are developing those features. And later on, we'll announce when we have the next items for the following semester. So then you know exactly what's coming even before we enter that semester. And again, the following semester is October of this year and ends in March of following year. Finally,
thank you.
Finally, the slicer, all components in the list slicers are going to be now designed or modified. You know that we cannot change the border of the checkboxes or the style when something is checked or not checked. And there are many things that the erasing button only can be changed if you do it in the themes. And if you're lucky enough to know how, the search icon box and the search text inside of the input of the search box is impossible to change. If you want to have a dark mode or dark backgrounds and then you use the slicer, it looks terrible because those grays are impossible to see in a dark theme. Then now that's going to be over. You're going to have full control everything, all states, when you hover, when it's selected, when it's inactive, etc. Full control. You see it, you edit it. And
I was just going to say one other follow-up question on slicers that I think is a good one is the so the question specifically is, can we have the option for picking default value for slices, which I'm going to translate as measure-driven default values using essentially conditional formatting to, great thing is relative date. I don't actually want a relative date slicer, but I just always want it to open to the report to the current month, which would be like January or February.
Yes. So the answer is yes. That's a priority. I can just put it like that. It's a priority for slicers in general. But when we did a deep investigation, we realized that what we need to do is we need to improve multiple areas to support this feature. The first one and most important area that we need to improve is conditional formatting. In the conditional formatting, we need to find ways to allow multiple rules to rule multiple parameters. And each parameter needs to be named. So then not only you can access to that parameter and apply it as a driven data selection, but as well you want to expose those selections to your end users so then they can just expose them and see, all right, I want to see a slicer that shows only the last 7 days or just the calendar, the current calendar, I don't know, fiscal year. Like there are many options that organizations want to see ready to use. not only one single selection that is always predefined by the creator. And we are going to start some explorations from the design side first, because we need to change how the whole conditional formatting works in general. And then we're going to find what are those components that we need to make sure that the driven data, I mean, the driven, yeah, the measure driven selection value can be shown into the slicers. I'll give you an example really quickly. If you go into conditional formatting right now and you want to apply a parameter that only shows you color red when is the last 7 days, you cannot do that, because we do not support. We just in January we just started supporting text strings where you can say make this red when the text is alpha, but we don't have anything for dates. So we need to include dates into the conditional formatting, like show me the last, the
Mm-hmm.
the top five, who knows, like all those needs to be included. So then when it's time for you to use this driven measure stuff, you have all necessary parameters to create your own auto selections. If we do not do that first, then you're gonna have a very limited access to those auto selections for slicers, if that makes sense. Just this conditional formatting is one of the other three um, features that we need to improve and connect, so then you have a full experience for measure-driven data labels. I'm sorry, for measure-driven selection values.
And just as a clarification, for any of the things that we're talking about with slicers, is that part of the upcoming vision for the next semester, or is that something more longer term?
No, the conditional formatting is an exploration that we want to start doing for the selections in
Mm,
slicers, but we want to do explorations starting in September if everything goes well, maybe August. And if we have a strong foundation from the design side, we might showcase those options to the community representatives. For those ones
okay.
that they don't know, community representatives, we show them multiple features before we finalize the roadmap for the entire semester. The community representatives vote on each of these items, and the items with the most votes are the ones that we're going to develop. So if everything is in a mature way and gets into the buckets for the community representatives to vote on, if they vote on this new conditional formatting stuff, then it will take us one step ahead of these measure-driven selected values. If they
Okay. Okay.
decide that there are other items that are more important, then that item will go to the next semester and so on. So it all
Mm.
depends the votes, and as well depends how many resources we have as developers and designers for the core visuals team.
Well, and I think that's what a lot with that hashtag on LinkedIn helps with as well, is to get community feedback and to give fuel to show Microsoft how important certain things are. I'll drop that
Yes.
into the. I'm gonna drop that in the chat, but it's PBI Core Visuals is the hashtag, right?
Yeah, I'm just gonna type it here so people can see it. Is hashtag uh, hashtag PBI core visuals all together.
Mm-hmm.
You use this one in LinkedIn or Twitter, and
Yep.
what happens is we collect them, every single one. Like I don't miss a one. Like trust me, if you type something with that hashtag, automatically gets into the system, it's sorted, it's saved, and it's ready for us to review when it's time to prioritize. I will expose all your comments to all the community representatives, because they cannot be biased, or they should not be biased. They should represent you all, but we need your collaboration, being vocal of the things that you need, so then they can use that information as one of the primary uh, areas for their votes, or to select what it's going to be implemented. So this is our platform. This is our hashtag. Please remember, if you're complaining about an object or the banners or connections or other stuff, that's not gonna I am not gonna be able to help you there. But if it's about data visualizations or any other visuals that we show in the canvas, the page, then that's our main area.
Perfect. Yep. It's in the chat as well. But yeah, as Miguel's saying, and I will just repeat one more time. Any of those questions, comments, concerns, suggestions for updates, like they are Miguel and team are monitoring this heavily and using this to aggregate the community voice up on things that people are wanting, and then as they continue, myself and them post about these updates, they're collecting the feedback. So like they are truly like looking at this, under a microscope to really get community involvement for these things.
That's correct. So basically, that's the strategy. You are, and Red is not going to let me lie. You are defining the future of the data visualizations. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
like never before, we're working with all of you, with your pain, with your experience, with your desires, everything that you have seen along these years in this journey. Just share with us, tell us exactly the things that you're waiting for, the things that you're suffering from, and everything is going to be like we are listening. My role as PM is to make sure that those ideas are well executed and we can have a holistic way to do them in a progressively manner with the resources that I have, and having a clear communication between design and engineers, so then your desires can become a reality. But it's you
Yep.
the ones that are putting it like making this really new vision future. So we need your collaboration.
Yeah, and 100%, and like I do like to see the community feedback and involvement on this because there are times where too many cooks can complicate the kitchen, but I do think that the voices around this really does help define those gaps, because it can either support something that we're like, hey, what's more important between two items, but also sometimes if there's something that's missed, because we all build reports different ways, we all need different features, and I think there's for each individual, there's always a little bit of an unknown that's out there. I do think stepping forward at least a little bit in our chats that we're doing today, we've talked a lot about some really amazing features that are coming out for existing visuals. Are there any considerations or thoughts around like some visuals that we don't have today that are coming out, like a bullet chart or other types of visualizations that aren't native but are just in the custom visuals marketplace today?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. There are many. Some of them are going to be included in the features that we already have or the visuals that we already have. A
Hmm.
great example that I can give you is the histogram. The histogram is a visualization that allows
Yeah.
you to create buckets in the primary axis, and you can use two numerical fields, one for the primary axis and the other one for the secondary axis, where the primary axis will create these bins or buckets. Um, Instead of building a new visualization that does that, what I instruct the team that we should do is now the bar, the column chart, the combo chart, all those visuals, even line charts, will have a new option in the primary axis setting where at this moment you can change between continuous and what was the other one?
Categorical.
Vertical. So now you're going to have another one, a third one that is going to call, let's imagine, bins. And
Okay. Okay.
basically will transform all these visualizations into histograms. That's what
That's
we
awesome.
need to do. So basically, we are not adding a new histogram. We are making every visualizations to behave or to act as a histogram if necessary.
Well, and we had to I mean it was possible that I have a video from like doesn't feel like that long ago, probably 5 years ago, where if you use the bins feature, right click add new bin, then you can create a histogram off of that. So you have to first create a calculated column that creates the bins, put that onto the visual. It's a bunch of steps, and then you have to delete the column when you're done.
Yeah,
But like having that on every visual, I think is fantastic.
it's fantastic.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
yes, yeah. So that's coming. There is another one. I forgot the name, but that's when you have a it looks like a scar chart, but then the secondary axis, in this case the y-axis, can become categorical, and then you can see multiple dots moving over time into multiple stages. I forgot the name of that visual, and I don't have an example, but
Different than the play act. Is this different than the play axis on the scatter
yeah,
plot?
yeah, entirely. Yeah, because
Okay.
is making the secondary axis that he always is value. Like let's move one step back. In the
Sure.
star chart before, in the past, like 5 years ago, we used to support only value, like numerical values for both axes, the y-axis and the
Yep.
x-axis for star chart. Then we implemented for the x-axis to be categorical. So then you can display
Yep.
categorical
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
values with bubbles, and then the other one will show you the the numerical side. And by using the size of the bubble, you can add a second parameter. So then you can have correlationships in there. But this new addition
Oh, okay.
is something that the visualization, that there is a visualization called, I forgot the name, but it's making the other axis that is the y-axis to become categorical as well. So then you can create this type of overall. It's hard for me to describe. I'm gonna see if I can find an
It's
example.
yeah, it's like a mapping between the two of them.
Yeah, yeah. So that's basically a completely new visual. But instead of us adding a new visualization, we will support categorical values in the second in the y-axis, and that's going to open more visualizations into. But it's already a visual. There is another one which is the violin, and we might be able to use some of the technology that we have for error bars and stuff like that and
Yeah.
overlap them. So then you can create a line chart or column chart having that column, but as well some other parameters that you can see from Box and Whiskers or violin stuff. So you might be able to overlap them.
I mean,
That's
it's a secondary axis essentially, but one goes to the left, one goes to the right, and you can just see how what is the spread, like current year, prior year, comparisons of people who voted yes versus no, or anything that's kind of
yes,
a binary comparison.
yeah, yeah. And things like that. So we're going to take the visuals to the next level. We're going to add more capabilities, and that's going to allow you to really create or use other type of visualizations. They will become more visualizations. In other hand, there are other ones that we cannot do that. We need to bring them into our core visuals, and that is the word cloud is a visual that works for like to analyze text or context and give you like more idea of what people are talking about. That's something really hard to see it in a other visualization. Is like word clouds are a very unique visual that gives you a very unique analysis type. That's going to be included. Another one that we want to include is the Gantt chart. There is no way for us to tweak our current components in Cartesians to make or to develop a new Gantt chart. It needs to be done by itself. And like that, there are many other visualizations that we will bring eventually, so then you can have more analysis types out of the box.
The number one that I definitely want is just like a bullet chart. I think it's the most common custom visual that I add is type of bullet chart into Power BI, just because it's such a great way for like a value and comparative value comparison.
Yeah, yeah. Bullet chart and other one that people call lipstick are gonna be part of the visuals. Like the all bar charts, column charts, line charts will have as well a capability to add some kind of indicators that can become bullet charts. Or you're gonna be able to have another column behind the one that you have to create some kind of lipstick visuals. Those are
Mm-hmm.
examples of what I meant. Instead of us creating a visualization called bullet chart, you're gonna make all our visualizations bullet chart as well.
So just basically, like the bar chart's going to have every feature you would need to turn that into one, where you could
Yeah,
overlay a
that's correct.
bar with a primary versus secondary, choose probably an offset, put the line there if you need to, change the marker type. So I mean, it's not far removed from, I think, the all those configurations that you have in the bullet chart, which is made by Microsoft, but it's a custom visual in the custom visual store.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, that's going to be part of the plot graph and charts improvements. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes people, when I say plot graph charts improvements, they are thinking about the visualizations. No, plot graph charts improvements is the bubbles, the columns, the lines, markers, everything that is used
Yep.
plot information. That's a whole bucket, and what like that's part of it. Adding markers, which is going to act like bullet charts and the overlapping columns behind the ones that we have, that's going to be graphs that we want to implement. But those are items that I'm going to provide to the community representatives, and they have to choose which ones are we going to do, because I said slicer improvements are going to be there. Another ones of the list that I'm going to give to the community representatives is the fact that we can use multiple fonts in the product, and allowing like importing a custom font that people can see everywhere without even having that font installed in their computer. The items like that are going to be part of the list. Committee representatives are going to have between 25 or 30 items, and they need to select them. So everything that I'm saying, yes, it's coming, it's coming. Everything is already in our roadmap and the vision. What it needs to be defined is when are we going to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you hit on that point where the Gantt chart would essentially have to be built from scratch. You can't just take a block of code that you've already had, add some tweaks to it, turn it into a Gantt chart. So I would guess that's something that's going to take longer to build out
Oh yeah,
versus a bullet charts. You upgrade the bar chart, you'll eventually get something that will let you create a bullet chart. So that's probably an easier lift and shift to be able to implement versus some of the other visual types.
that's correct.
If you want to, like, some of the questions that I have queued up have been answered by previous ones, but there's some other ones as well that I'd like to throw as a conversation point. This is actually a really good one. So I was introduced to IBCS a few years ago. I love this. The Just as a quick summary, the idea that if music can have a written language of keys, why can't we have something like that for visuals? Why can we not have a standardization of shapes, colors, patterns that that indicate something? So as a standardization of international business communication standards, I love it. But they're wanting to know your opinion on what you think about IBCS.
Oh yeah, that's going to be implemented. All those rules, I'm already checking and putting everything in scope. That all those symbols, all those treatments in data
Hmm.
visualizations are going to be as well included in the new improvements that you're going to see. I think 80% of them are going to even be part of the new default. So you won't need to make many adjustments. Just maybe turn on some toggles or some options, and then you'll get that behavior out of the box without you making changes. Something so super important that I need to tell you is that when we launched not long ago, like a few days ago, a survey regarding the style, and some of the comments that I read from the people were like, like they said something like, you don't need to change any style because at the end we end up changing it anyway. So just keep it as it is. And I saw like few of them, like I'll say maybe a good number of them. And what I have to say is, based on our data, 90% of the users don't change anything. They rely entirely on the defaults. So bringing those good practices, good patterns, good foundations in data visualization, it's super important because people don't change anything. So then if they design a report from scratch, their audience or the end users can see good practices without that person making so many changes. So we do rely on great defaults. We rely on following good practices and adding those fundamentals.
And the one last follow up that I'll say on that is I linked to people to the book. By the way, it's actually a great book, Solid.
Yes, yes. We're improving components like the axis, the plots, graphs, and lines, and then slices. But at some point, we're going to take the time to redesign even the visuals themselves, like the waterfall. The visualization requires a lot of attention of certain areas where it's too limited, and sometimes even for financial analysis is not quite capable to do the minimum required. And we are going to take those practices and really enhance it. Maybe by adding styles, you select the style and automatically will switch how you showcase it. Another one is going to be the funnel chart, which right now is quite as well primitive or very basic. And with the new enhancements that we want to do to that particular visual, you're going to be able to switch it to see the funnel horizontal, vertical, and you're going to be able to see multiple levels or categories breakdowns below each of these buckets, explanation of why you're moving from one bucket to the next one, conversion rates, more descriptive, etc. So at some point, visuals are going to go as well into a whole redesign process. That's going to be one of the end parts of the whole redesign work, because we want first to give you all components, like improve the power of these components, and then later on work on top of something powerful, or a foundation that is really good. Okay, I can hear you.
All right. Okay. So, oddly enough, my input switched out, but now the people on the chat should be able to hear me.
To
There we go.
hear,
Okay.
to hear me. Yeah,
Yeah, and you can still hear me, right?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Excellent. And just testing. Okay. I just have to turn up my gain a little bit. So, done. All right. Boom. Okay. So, yeah, back to the a little bit of the Q&A questions here. A couple of other things that I want to do is pull up some of these other questions and give you a chance to speak to some of these. So, IBCS, yeah, this is a good one too. Power Eggs actually had a few good ones, but will Microsoft create a better map visual?
No. Power BI already designed a better visual, map visual, and that's called Azure Maps.
Mm-hmm.
It's powerful. It has all components that we need. The Azure team owns it, no Power BI. So what we are doing
Yep.
is Rien who was the former product manager for data visualizations, for core visuals, he moved into another section, and he's still owning the map entirely. And he's collaborating with the Azure Maps to make sure that everything is done properly. And once the Azure Maps hand that visual over to us, I will take it and improve it to the level that, I mean, the next level. But there are many options and many settings that I am not authorized to change. Is the Azure Maps that owns it entirely. That visual, you will be able to do exactly what you do with shape maps, what you can do with field map, the map that has those bubbles, and you can even have multiple layers. They're going to allow you to have trajectories if you want to track the trajectory from point A to point B. So you're going to be able to do that. Like, there are many good stuff that they're going to do. Um,
Now
one,
they're essentially, and just to paraphrase off of that, it's going to combine a lot of the maps that we've, shape map, which has notoriously been in preview for 4 years. Yeah, that will eventually go away.
stay
The standard map will go away. It's going to consolidate a bunch of those. It won't hit the level that you can do with the icon map. I just want to give a soft plug to James Dales, who actually will be on in about 3 weeks to talk about the shape map, which is, I think, just hands down the best map visualization for Power BI. Period. But it's going to get a lot closer for everyone who wants a one-click experience with a native visual, who doesn't need to have to install something that's not certified and a bunch of other stuff. That's going to be a great solution that will be coming forward. But then for the advanced users who need the hyper complex, really cool, customized, custom plotted, all that other stuff, the shape map will still have a place in the community, I think.
Yeah, but even though the new Azure Maps will give you the options to turn it into shape map. So the goal is for you really to do not use the other ones. It's going to happen the same thing as going to happen with the car, multi-row card, and the KPI. It will be depreciated, and you're going to find
Mm-hmm.
the features too outdated compared to the new visuals. So that's
Of
going to
course,
have
yeah.
the Sure Maps is going to really give you more controls than the previous ones. Again, that doesn't belong to me yet, but at some point, maybe in the next 3 years, it will. And then that's when we're going to have serious, like we are going to talk about that into a more serious way to see how far we can take maps.
Exactly, I think they can be leveraged a lot more once you can start layering on the features, custom mapping coordinates, as well as like real time data, like traffic and all that other stuff.
Yeah,
All this. Yeah.
changing the colors in the background, the oceans, the rivers,
Mhm.
like everything that I can do right now with Mapbox. I would love if we can do something similar as well for Azure Maps in the future.
Let's see. I'm looking through my queue a little bit right now. So what do we got? We talked about slicers. We already went through that and IBCS shape map. Yeah, let's. I think you might like this question. This was from Jake a little bit earlier. So is Power BI heading more towards the grammar of graphics paradigm to increase flexibility?
To increase visibility.
Flexibility.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, there is that's a new vision that we have. Something else that we want to do with these new enhancements is to really reduce the separation between what authors can do and consumers can do. So at some point, consumers are going to have as much control as report creators. But there is much more into it, and design is the one that really holds those principles and that vision. What I do as PM is just make sure that all the capabilities and features respond as good as possible, but the design is the one coming up with these patterns, these principles, and these ways to display the information. They are inclined to that vision.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And let's see, managing a few others. One person asked about a Python visualization, but we have that today. We're going to go into. I already answered that one. What current? Here we go. Okay, I like this one. I will. I don't want to butcher your name, so I'll just read the question. Question will be, what current page navigation with the current page navigation features in Power BI, there really isn't a way to create sub navigation menus. So I'm going to assume groups for pages. What are your thoughts about allowing to create sub navigation menus? So like we can group bookmarks. Could we group pages as well to have these three related to this, like a hierarchy?
Yeah,
navigation
yeah,
ability.
yeah. It is completely right. That's one of the main things that I always criticize when I was trying to create a navigation in Power BI. First, if you ask me personally, that you didn't, but I'm gonna share it anyways. For me to create buttons in your page to navigate is a crime. And I do that all the time because there's another really good way to do it. And now if you're using the only space that you have for your visuals to tell the story, to create a whole navigation section with hierarchy and all, to me, it is just not good. I hope, and I will continue fighting that fight, that the navigation panel that can be only exposed and modified in service because it doesn't exist in Power BI Desktop. I will continue fighting the fight of bringing that component into Power BI, just like what we have for the filter pane, which I own now. The filter pane is a separate section that can be expanded and collapsed, and then I will make the filter pane quite much better than what we have it, with more options and better ways to create groups and enhancements. But if we had the navigation panel in the Power BI desktop, then I will take it to that level too, and I will add those hierarchy ways, and then you to place icons, create separation between them, full control over states when you hover, select, press, etc. But still in the service. Let me see what I can do. I will continue fighting and see what can happen.
Well, and a
Right
thought
now,
too, a little bit of a thought too with the app experience in Power BI is like it would be great to have a custom navigator you can build, but you do have the built-in page navigator in Power BI and in apps, and you can put a report which has its own hierarchy of report pages into a group. It would be kind of nice if you could split that up. Like if you could say, I create group A, page 1, 3, and 5 goes here in the app, and then same report pages 2, 4, and 6 go into this other named group. So you're essentially using the native hierarchy without having to take a page space on the report page and make your own button and all that.
Yes.
Just segmenting in the app navigation experience would be great.
That's right. That's my goal. And to me, we should never use those buttons for navigation, like only for very specific situations, in my opinion. Everything else that is for navigation, it should be in a panel just like what we do with filter panes. And let's see what the future brings. If this is the reality, if we see good improvements with this vision, the community is participating, we have a better customer response on the sentiment analysis that we'll do, and we get into this good synergy or momentum, then I will have enough uh, information or motives for the other teams to handle that back to me, and then we can talk about how we can improve navigation and add hierarchy, and really even for you to create a navigation that can be linked into multiple reports, and without opening new tabs, just in the same place you can jump back and forth to multiple workspaces. I need to work with the team, and they need to be convinced that I can handle it. But right now, I just started my position 3 months ago, and I hope for all of you to be part of my team and continue engaging us.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm continuously excited for this, and I am always amazed at your not only your work ethic, but the amount of time that you've managed to find to put into this. Like, I think between you and Marco, you're two individuals where it's like when I see the amount of work that you can do in a week, like how do you find the time to get this much done? I'm sure you guys both work a healthy and maybe you work a lot of hours. I'm sure, but it's
Yeah,
impressive the amount of dedication you have and passion, which I don't think you'd be putting as many hours into this stuff if you didn't believe in it as something that needs to be done.
well, the whole reason of this amount of time and love and passion I put is because I came from the streets. I was living in the streets. I didn't have any roof. I was eating from the garbage, and I suffer hunger, and I suffer the worst of the worst things that you can imagine, and all in the name of progressing in life. And then I found love in maths and graphs and chart, like all these data visualization, graphic design, and I I found a way to succeed in doing what I love. But what it really gives me the energy to do this work in this amount of level is because I know that just as I suffered, many other people, young people, old people in multiple countries are suffering, trying to find a path in their lives to succeed. And if I can at least give them a tool that they can use their talent that they might have in this area, but maybe the tool is too restrictive and too limited to not allow them to be creative enough to expose what they love doing it and succeed in life and get away from those horrible situations. I think it's a good way for me to invest more hours than other employees and put this amount of love. Um, I believe that whoever that say let's create Power BI, that person saved my life from that life, and I want to return the back. So that's the whole reason why I'm putting that much passion about it.
Well, it's coming from the community back to the community, right? I mean, and
Yeah,
I think the success stories where people move their way up inch by inch into something are I've often found is the most passionate people for their job because they earned every rung on the ladder through hard work and perseverance to get to where they are, and it gives you perspective looking back down of where you came from to a large degree.
yep, I agree with that.
Let's see um, I'll just broadly say there's quite a few conversations around bookmarks. What do you have to maybe speak on that a little bit? Because right now, essentially, to give a little bit of context, we used to use bookmarks for page navigation. Then we got a dedicated page navigator option for buttons and a page navigator type button that essentially isn't needed anymore for bookmarks. We still pretty much use bookmarks for visibility toggling, and we use bookmarks for filter macros. Scenario A, scenario B. They are also, I think, every single person universally agrees, great for the user when built, but horrible for the developer to build and maintain. Do you have any ideas for like a vision going forward of what they're used for today? Will there ever be any other experiences for filtering or visibility that would move outside outside of bookmarks? Like, what do you have as thoughts just around how they can be built or what they're used for?
Yeah, bookmarks is not you say something interesting. Is really good for end users, but really horrible for developers. I think
Yep.
it's horrible for end users too if we talk about accessibility. People with that they use their keyboard to navigate,
Mhm.
or that they use the what was this technology, the screen readers. With bookmarks and the way that they act and the way that we have to program them is just horrifying experience. I remember when I was designing a report for COVID-19, and they told me you need to make it available for screen readers. One of the things that I did was to basically turn off my monitor and navigate only by listening the screen reader.
Mm.
And I
Okay.
was horrified that it was so beautiful with all these bookmarks that I put together. And then when it was time for me to experience what I experienced, I was just like, I said to myself, not again. So it can be really a disaster as well if you want to make your report accessible. If you are going to develop a solution and other engineers or report designers have to put their hands, that can be a disaster as well because one single change can destroy a lot of setups in the bookmarks.
Yep.
Bookmarks are not really good with interactivity actions. They are really static and based on selections that you
Yep.
save. And that's another big limitation that is impacting the
Yep.
user experience. So honestly, it's not even good for users, in my opinion. What we want to do is we want, again, coming back from conditional formatting, we want for conditional formatting to control everything, even interactions. And once we get into that state, you're going to find more like easier to maintain, easier for users to navigate and to take advantage of these options using conditional formatting than bookmarks. Bookmarks at some point, I hope sooner than later, will go back in the way they were designed from the beginning, just to have as a bookmark, like something that you save as I want to just go there and stop going through all these pages or applying all these filters, just get everything sorted for
Well,
me.
it's supposed to be a filter macro. Like, it was built to
Yeah,
really just like manager A, B, and C. And manager A has these 5 filter configurations. Manager B has these 4. Scenario A, scenario B. You just click it, edit, filters, filter pane, or book
and that's it.
slices, filter pane. Like, that's what it was supposed to be. All these other things that we've hacked it around. I talking to Mohammed, like, we never really planned for this, but we made it so flexible that people found 1,000 ways to use it. That was not the intention. I have at least heard, I believe, from Mohammed, that the vision at some point is to remove visual selection into an option where you can just kind of configure a button to show, toggle, or hide. But I think measure-driven visibility would also be fantastic as well. If that was just simply just a property that could be applied with an f of x button, then you don't even need a bookmark technically. You can just
No,
simply go assign that per visual, show or hide this depending on filter configurations on the page, and you have complete flexibility to build that ever you want. But then that continues to lessen the need for bookmarks and eliminate having to spend 30 minutes during a training and explaining how to build those. It is such a long, painful conversation every time I train a class. Like, and I literally will start with, I love bookmarks for a customer because you could do pop-ups and all this cool stuff. You're gonna hate how to build it. It is just, it is a house of cards, and if you breathe the wrong way, they don't work correctly. It's
yeah,
really hard to implement them correctly.
yeah, for sure. And many tooltip improvements, many other
Mm-hmm.
items to add into the frame of Power BI will replace those crazy pop-up stuff or if, like all those things that we need to build into the tool. They will be replaced by these components, and that's why I was saying before. I hope that at some point I can take into Power BI desktop the navigation, so even we can use that instead bookmarks and buttons all over the page.
Yes, and all these things that can also be consolidated, into more trellised uh, containers that allow you to collectively have all of these accessible. I think will be huge steps forward. Um, I Coming back to some of the other questions. This one hopefully is just an easy one. Hermont did want to know, like, that updated date picker. Did you have approximate timeline of what semester that might be coming out in?
Yeah, remember, The only thing that we can give you dates is what is in the official roadmap that I
Of
just
course.
already gave. The rest of the items, yes, we want to improve the date slicers, and we even want to bring a new slicer that is going to be called calendar slicer. We're still doing some explorations, but it all depends on you. Like if the community is very vocal on certain items and features, that will be passed to the community representatives, and they will define what comes first, and then we will give you, all of you, transparency of when things are coming to the product. But at this moment, everything is in the roadmap. We have, well, not everything, but certain areas of improvements are already in our vision of that we need to do it. It's just a matter of when is exactly what is still pending to define.
Exactly. Paraphrasing that, the like, as these things start to come out, or if you start to see posts from Miguel or anything else, like, because you're going to be releasing surveys every once in a while, you're going to try to gauge temperatures and community feedback on some of this stuff. So if you ever see anything coming out there to asking you to vote on something, or like, what are your ideas on topic X, that's usually because Microsoft is trying to get for Miguel and his team, trying to get information back on how urgently and how strongly do you want something to come in, especially when there's only so many person hours that these engineers have, and if there's 5 things to work on and they only have time for 2, um, between the internal resources that they have and the community, that's going to help drive probably the prioritization of those. So continue to use that hashtag and respond to those if you see it on Twitter or LinkedIn. Reshare it, repost it, give your opinion there, and that all gets tracked back and reviewed to help decide the pipeline for this stuff.
Yep.
As we're starting to wrap up, I do want to be conscious of your time, and also a few questions left that I think are good to pop up into here. And I like this one because I think this is a very good debate for people's opinions. So, can the visual be rendered only when the report is scrolled down? So I will say that, like, I've seen people do this where you make, let's say, 720 by 3000. You make a super tall page. You want to scroll the report. I'd argue that's personally a bad practice. If you have that much information on one page, there's a opportunity to have a summary, a detailed, and a drill through. You split the pages between the story, because jack of all trades, master of none. If you have too much information at once, it's overloading for the user. So I don't like to have scrolls at all. But I do know a lot of people who wished something like this could exist, where it doesn't take 5 minutes to load the page because you have 140 visuals. So what's your opinions on kind of an optimization of rendering upon scrolling for like those tall pages that people sometimes build?
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that is not in our roadmap. That's the Canvas team. The Canvas is the one that manages how the pages renders information. I believe at some point they were talking about an infinite canvas, where you can basically create that infinite amount of visuals below with a scroll bar, almost like the dashboard experience. I have no idea what happened with that idea. At some point it was discussed, and they want to add it for this semester, but maybe they have, I really don't know. I'm just speculating, but that's the Canvas thing. Let me find out what is the plans, and maybe I'll share that in another webinar or in social media. But so far, I haven't heard more about it.
I do kind of personally, and obviously I'm obviously biased. I would kind of hope it doesn't, just because I think we'll end up with too many reports with hundreds of visuals, and it can become daunting. Unless you had some way as a check where, as you scroll down, there'd be a little button to almost open next section so you could segment it. But I would not want to have to see more than a few dozen visuals at once, just because the cognitive load that we all have as a brain. Too many numbers becomes confusing as far as the data we're trying to extrapolate from information being presented to us.
Yeah, well, a good practice is what you described at the beginning. Like, instead of having a long table, just make your data infrastructure divided in a nice way, so you have a clean flow from the overall to the detail, which is basically what you're trying to do with this scroll option. And depending how you design your report, having multiple pages can feel more like it can feel nicer than just scrolling down and missing everything that you're just scrolling up. We're going to add more capabilities in the data visualization, so that when you move from page to page, you will continue seeing context of what you had before. That I was talking with Ray about it before this webinar. That maybe adding a banner that carries all the filters and cross highlightings and to drill through parameters that you're passing from page to page and have context exactly what you're seeing and how you're filtering. That's gonna even make this flow between pages more intuitive and easier to explore than just a scroll option. But I know in the data visualization, everything is flexible, and maybe there are options or reasons why you want to do that scrolling situation. And at that moment, as far as I know, it's just a discussion, but nothing has been formalized regarding that area.
And a call out that I want to mention on that, like providing the filter context as you navigate through your environments. That's often referred to in other platforms as breadcrumbs. It's the breadcrumb trail of the, I started 5 clicks and 5 filters away. Here's the kind of 2018 to segment A to this to that. So a visual that can automatically show that, or also having that as a toggle in the subtitle would be really nice to be able to, like, because I've built that in DAX. I've done the has one value, and I capture the drill through. So if you drill into 2018, it will show that with an arrow, and it concatenates all the values together. But it's a lot of DAX to do that. And having, like, as you said, a clarity on navigating within a visual or between pages will be great, because we have some filter context available in that little drop down icon if you hover, but it's not clear enough for most users, and it's easy to get lost in, why is this number this way? I don't understand, or I forgot what I've done. So this number now seems wrong or confusing to me.
Yes, that's correct. Well, I think we are going to the end of this meeting.
Yes.
I'll check those questions, and then I'll see if I can answer them in the Power BI Core Visuals team. But thank you everyone for being part of this webinar. It has been a tremendous experience for me as well in these last 3 months.
No, absolutely, Miguel. I really appreciate you for coming on to this. I love the amount of conversations and questions that we had here. I think we had a peak viewership of approximately 60 people that were in the chat. So really good, healthy amount of people. And I think it just shows the excitement in the community for just like all these changes that are wanting to come out. But again, takeaway, please use that hashtag every time you have any post where you're talking about ideas, considerations, positive or negative feedback, things related to just the report and the visual layer, all of that stuff. They will track that, and we're both asking you for support on this to really help give fuel back to the team to continue to be able to push forward on these changes and make this evolution happen. So
yeah, it's all in your hands now.
Exactly. But yeah, perfect. And Miguel, I'm sure I'll have you back on sometime in the next 6 to 12 months as all sorts of cool new stuff continues to come out. Yeah, thank you so much again for taking time out every day to come on and talk about this.
My pleasure. Have everyone an excellent day or night.
Perfect.
See ya.
All right, cheers, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. And if you want to help support this channel, take a look at our channel memberships or our merchandise store for cool swag. And last but not least, please consider sharing this video on your social media platform of choice to help our channel grow. So, until next time.